I know that look on your face, you're confused. You want to get your character all geared up for the exciting endgame, but you have no idea where to start or even how to do it. I myself have been leveling up a new character and I'm all ready to get geared up, and I thought that maybe some other people might benefit from learning how to do this. In this video, I'll explain most of what you need to know to get yourself geared up, and at the end, maybe I can run through it myself to show you how it's actually done. There are some things to know or understand first before you get started. First off, there are 3 tiers of gear that can be considered endgame: exotic, ascended, and legendary. Exotic is the most readily available and, generally speaking, easiest to acquire. Believe it or not, exotic is actually good enough to handle most endgame content, such as world vs world, open world metas, strikes, raids. Ascended has a stat increase over exotic. The exact amount I believe is approximately 12%, and it is a little bit more difficult to acquire. It also allows for infusions such as agony infusions, which will be required if you want to take on higher level fractals. So if fractals are of interest to you, ascended is mandatory. And legendary is the same as ascended stat-wise with infusions, but it allows you to swap out stats and upgrades for free at any time. You can also use it on multiple characters and reskin it whenever you want for free. So it should go without saying that legendary is by far the most difficult and expensive to acquire. It will serve as your long-term goal. I'm not going to include all the legendary gear in this video, that would take way too long. I'll give you a little sneak peek at the requirements on the wiki page, and keep in mind this is just for one piece. Rinse and repeat until you have a full set of gear. The next thing to understand is your stat combos. This will be entirely dependent on your build. I can't decide that for you. You are going to have to do a little bit of research to find a build that you like the sound of. So check some build websites, watch a few videos, and see what stat combos those builds use, and then go from there. Most build guides will have some kind of indication on the difficulty or complexity of the build. Some builds are even labeled as low intensity because they are so simple. Unfortunately, I can't really make any broad statements about the type of build that you should be looking for because so many arguments can be made about this build being easier than that build. So if you have no idea where to start, just try sticking to builds that have a lower difficulty rating. However, there are some general stat recommendations that the community generally agrees on. For example, Berserker for power DPS, Viper for Condi DPS, Harrier for healing or support, Celestial for any kind of general open world play. There are many stat combos out there, and most of them have their use in some way. Whichever build you decide on will likely tell you what stat combos or alternates you can run. So once you have your stats all sorted out, we can move on. Now obviously you can just craft all of this gear yourself if you happen to spend the time and gold leveling up your crafting skills. However, I'm assuming since you're interested in this video topic, you don't want to do that, and you're interested in some easier and cheaper ways to acquire gear. I think it'll be best if we split this up between armor, weapons, and trinkets. I'll start with exotic and then go over how to upgrade to ascended. Let's begin with your armor. Starting with exotic, depending on what stat combo you want, you may be able to buy this straight off the trading post. Simply go to the armor section and use the search modifiers to select your stats. Select exotic and level 80. You can then arrange by price and look for the cheapest option. As you can see, these ones named after heroes are pretty cheap. They come with runes that may not be optimal, but the armor piece is what we're after. Before you get too excited, not every stat combo is available in these cheap named sets. So for some, you might have to buy the player crafted version, which will be expensive. But there are other methods of exotic armor that might offer some more flexibility by giving you stat selectable gear. However, you will have to work for them. The bladed armor in Verdant Brink is what's called stat selectable, meaning it has no stats. You get to select what stat combo you want on it. These pieces can be acquired in a few ways. The shoulders, legs, and boots have to be bought from the armor vendor, which requires you to have the Itzel language mastery and enough map currency. The headpiece can be bought from the vendor, drop from airship cargo in Verdant Brink, or you get one after completing the Jungle Provides story mission. The gloves can be bought from the vendor, drop from airship cargo, or from the Wyvern Matriarch. And the chest can only drop from the Wyvern Matriarch. So you will have to put in some effort to get these, but the benefit of stat selectable gear is huge. This will allow you to get those stat combos that are a bit more difficult. For example, Viper, Celestial, Harrier, Ritualist. Just keep in mind, once you select your stat, you cannot change it. It is locked in. You can also also get a bladed armor piece of your choice by completing the corresponding PvP or World vs. World reward track. But if you play World vs. World, there is a better way to get all of your exotic gear. The Tide 07 Unified Vendor System sells all stat selectable gear for armor, weapons, and trinkets for gold and badges of honor. If you play World vs. World and have a decent amount of badges of honor, this is an excellent way to gear up your characters. It might even be the best way, period, for exotic gear at least. However, I know newer players probably won't be able to make use of this, but it's still worth mentioning. I also think it's worth mentioning that temples on ore, once completed, have a karma merchant that will sell exotic gear for karma. The stat combos aren't always optimal, but it is an option. Okay, now let's talk Ascended Armor when it comes time to upgrade. How are you going to do that? Well, thanks to the Wizard's Vault rewards, you'll be able to buy some Ascended Armor chests right there. As of right now, you can get 3 Ascended Armor chests each season from the Wizard's Vault. And as an added bonus, they are all stat selectable. This is a huge opportunity to easily acquire some Ascended Armor. It is well worth it to spend some of your Astral Acclaim to get these armor chests. Completing strike missions will give you a currency that can be used to buy Ascended Armor chests, and same goes for raids. They are broken up into sections like healers, defenders, and assaulters, so you might just have to do a quick wiki search to see which one to buy for which stat combo. I will also mention that you can get Ascended Armor from PvP and World vs. World, but it will cost you the game mode currency and Grandmaster marks, which can only be obtained by playing a lot of the game mode or by crafting, and like I said earlier, we're trying to avoid crafting. Ascended Armor can also be purchased in a similar way from Fractals for fractal currency, but in Fractals you're actually much more likely to get Ascended Armor chest drops. If you have progressed to the point of Ascended Trinkets, you should have enough agony resistance to take on the first tier at least. The more you play through Fractals, the higher your reward tier gets, and eventually you should start seeing those Ascended Armor chest drops. Even if they are the wrong stat combo, that's okay, you can take them to the Mystic Forge and swap out the stat combo for whichever one you actually want. And if you're really lucky, you can technically get an Ascended Armor drop from any drop in the game. Technically, any guild mission, world boss chest, champion bag, rank up chest, and a lot more can drop one, although it is extremely rare. Okay, time for weapons. Luckily, a lot of what I said about the armor is transferable to the weapons also. You can do the same trading post search method. Depending on what you're looking for, it might be there for a cheap price. And as a special bonus, some of them have some pretty cool looking skins, so take a look at that while you're at it. As far as stat selectable weapons goes, there aren't very many options. There is a set called the Iron Legion weapons, but they are a bit pricey and only come in a few weapons, so not ideal. Once again, I will mention the World vs. World gear vendor. All possible gear is available here if you have the badges of honor. So if you play some World vs. World, you will be at an advantage when it comes to easily gearing up. I can also mention that the Elite Specialization training also rewards an exotic weapon. They have limited stat combos to choose from, but depending on the build, it might work for you. Honestly, I think the best choice for exotic weapons is probably just buying them off the trading post. Even if you can't find the exact stats that you want, you can probably find something comparable to use while you work toward Ascended. As for Ascended weapons, we can again get an Ascended weapon from the Wizard's Vault. We only get one per season though, so choose wisely. Other than that, we are looking at similar ways that we just discussed for the armor. Completing strike missions or raids and then buying it from the corresponding merchant is an option. Getting into Fractals, World vs. World, PvP is also an option the same way it was for the armor. Once you accumulate enough currency, you can just buy them from the right vendor. And also, those super rare item drops do still exist, or at least I'm told they do. I also need to make a special mention for the Elite Specialization Collection achievements. Upon completion, they will give you an Ascended version of the exotic one it gave you after completing the Elite Specialization training. If it happens to be a weapon and stat combo that you actually use, then this can be a great source of easy Ascended weapons. and some of them look really cool as well. Now as for the trinkets, unfortunately there isn't much choice when it comes to exotic. You're pretty much limited to crafting, which we don't want to do, or buying them, which can be expensive. There are a few stat combos that can be bought for cheap prices, but they are uncommon and come with an empty upgrade slot. The only alternative I can think of is the temples in Ore. The karma merchant there can sell items for karma. The trinkets they sell don't have the most useful stat combos, and they are not salvageable, meaning any upgrade you slot into them will be permanently stuck. Not the most ideal choice, but these might be good enough to hold you over while you work toward ascended trinkets. As for ascended trinkets, they might be the easiest ascended items to get. I find a lot of players sometimes skip exotic trinkets and just go straight for ascended. One thing to note about trinkets is some of them are called unique, meaning you can only equip one of them at a time. This is usually the case for named ascended trinkets, for example the Ring of Red Death. You can technically work around this by attuning one copy of the item, but trust me, it's much better to just use different items. If you have access to Living World Story, most trinkets can be farmed from these maps for map currency. For example, Bitterfrost Frontier has a ring, accessory, and back item. Ember Bay has an accessory and back item. Bloodstone Fen has a ring, amulet, and back item. Lake Doric has a back item and amulet. Okay, I think you get the idea. All of these items can be bought with Unbound Magic and the corresponding map currency, which can be farmed or gathered. This is probably the best source in my opinion, and best of all, they are all stat selectable. Another source is the Laurel Merchants. You can buy rings, amulets, and accessories for laurels. Guild commendations, if you participate in your guild's guild missions, you can get enough commendations to buy them there. If you do fractals, you can buy them for pristine fractal relics or get them as item drops from completing fractals. And finally, I'll mention the Mists trinkets. These ones are good because they are stat selectable and they can be reset. You can buy them from PvP, World vs. World, or fractals. The merchant for these also sells a Mists capacitor. This is the item that will reset the stat combo, allowing you to respec into a new build with different stats without buying new ascended trinkets. Just be aware any infusions will be lost in the process unless you extract them with an upgrade extractor first. Now I will just quickly touch on runes, sigils, and relics. This is where you don't have much of a choice. You can craft a lot of these yourself, but like we said at the beginning, we don't want to do crafting. And even if we did, a lot of the materials required for these are pretty expensive, and it also requires level 400 of your chosen crafting discipline. So you might be forced to just buy these as is from the trading post. But be sure to check what your build uses though. Some builds give alternate budget-friendly options. And I got a bit of a hot take incoming. Sometimes the budget-friendly option is close enough to the real thing that you can just use the budget-friendly option and no one will know the difference. So now that all of this is said and done, let's apply this knowledge and see it in action. I'm going to gear up one of my characters with a brand new loadout as if I just hit level 80 for the first time to show you how it's done. On my own time, I went out and I found a build to copy, so let's jump in there and get started. This build wants full Viper stats, but I need something to hold me over until I collect the stat selectable gear. The alternate that it suggests is Carrion, which is power, vitality, condi damage. So let's hit the trading post and see what we have. There is a set of armor, we can buy all of that. And lucky me, there is also some trinkets with Carrion stats at cheap prices. Let's get those too. Alright, let's check the weapons. We need a short bow. This one is Celestial, so that's no good. But this one is Carrion. Great, we'll take it. Now it says I need 2 daggers. Perfect, we've got cheap daggers right here that are not unique. I'll take 2. Now I do still need some accessories and a back item, so I can check the temples to see if they have anything that I can use. The stat combo isn't ideal, but it can at least hold me over until I get the ascended version. They cost a lot of karma, so at this point I need to decide if I want to spend the karma on these or buy the player crafted version on the trading post. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm just going to get these karma ones. I have nearly 3 million karma after all, so it won't make much of a difference to me. The rune is Rune of the Afflicted. Lucky me again, it's very affordable. As for sigils, it wants Bursting and Malice. Those are too expensive for now. The budget that it recommends is Earth. I'll get 2 and put 1 on each weapon set, and I think the existing sigils on my weapons will be good enough for now. The dagger has Sigil of Battle, which will generate might, and the shortbow has Bloodlust, which gives a bonus damage stack with each kill. Or I could also swap that out for the Condi damage variant, Sigil of Corruption, which is cheap as well. Those sigils will be good enough for now until I can make enough gold for the Bursting and Malice sigils. I do need to buy some upgrades for my trinkets, so I'll buy these exquisite jewels, which are pretty affordable. And as for the relic, unfortunately the only option is the trading post. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm not actually going to buy it since I already have a legendary relic, but I trust you get the idea here. So there we go, all geared up and ready to go. Alternatively, I could have just bought everything from the World vs. World gear merchant as my one-stop shop, since I do have a surplus of badges of honor, but I think doing it this way was way more interesting since it's a lot closer to what most new players will have to do. But with all this said and done, I think you should be all set to get yourself geared up with no issues. Also, just understand that there are many other ways that you can go about gearing up that I didn't include in this video. Some of those other methods I may have left them out because they are not ideal or just not recommended, especially for new players. But if you happen to know of any other method that you think is worthwhile, then please feel free to share with the group and let us all know. Well, that is going to be all for now. I hope you enjoyed this or found it helpful, but until next time, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye for now.